viewers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. I have a very quick Beyond the Matrix report. As you know, the spring equinox, we had our great Beyond the Matrix Expo in Sedona, Arizona. It was a phenomenal week. The spring equinox was not only celebrated, it was activated in a very special way on Wednesday just after dawn in Sedona, Arizona, up on Bell Rock. 22 of the mightiest star children on Earth hiked up the trail to Bell Rock, acclaimed by many to be the root chakra of the planet Earth. When we arrived, the air was still, and a few clouds hung in the sky surrounding the small plateau on which we stood in a circle. Crystal Bowl Masters, led by Sarion Michael, supplied the resonant frequency for our voices as we sung before and after our intentional effort to make the year of light go to the next level of brightness. It was done with reverence and power and respect for the earth. I will tell you that the Mighty 22 set in motion a wave that will circle the world and cause the very pillars of hell to shake. We delivered a love so powerful that a few moments later, without prompting of any kind, a friend of mine who was a listener to this radio program texted me all the way from Dallas, Texas. She said, "I don't know what you're doing right now, but I just got a feeling of very powerful love. Keep it up." You felt it too. It was sent to the world for a reason. The masters of darkness know the principles I teach in the Remembering the Future project are true. They utilize them every day when they bathe you in their propaganda, 24 hours a day from the media. The truth is that God created this process so we could expand the universe. It has been stolen by the dark powers and is now being used against the universe to collapse it back into the darkness from which it came. You know, and I know that it was designed and is energized by us to become light beyond limits. So here we have the two forces, darkness and light. Our purpose for ushering in the equinox of the year of light with the Mighty 22 is to call to action the other star children who are here. We already refuse to resonate with the message of hatred and oppression. We already don't feel at home in that environment. We already know that we came from far away to Earth for the metamorphosis of Earth into a new planet of light. Face it. You know I am speaking the truth when I say it. Perhaps you came here anciently to build the edifices that survived the union of the polarity, which merged the two earths into the vibrant child of life upon which we live right now. Maybe you remember some of those lives, cutting and laying stone. Maybe you feel your heart throb when you visit these ancient sites, like a memory is urging its way through your DNA to the surface to remind you of who you really are. Perhaps you are a new arrival here, come from across the galaxy to add your soul energy to the birth of a new Earth. Maybe you were attracted to the greatest show in the universe, the planet, with the most forms of life for 1,000,000 light years in any direction. Maybe you are a star midwife, arrived to add light to the occasion. But know this: you are the plan. The mission is your choice. I'm urging you to participate and not just observe this event. The Dark Lord has sent his best here to die for him. These souls did not come here by choice. They didn't arrive the way you did, under the authority of God and through the well of souls. They came another way. But like you, when their mortal body dies here, they are born again here. They look human, but they are not. You may think they can be saved or converted, but they cannot. Enoch taught us one irrefutable truth. There are unauthorized souls here on this planet, and they cannot be redeemed because they were brought here by Lucifer. Over the millennia, they have come against us, driving us to war with them. When we commit war, we harm our souls. This is exactly their purpose for being here. They enjoy killing. They enjoy raping and oppressing us. They are trying to convince us to do this of our own free will. And they have convinced many to do just that. The mighty 22 star children on Bell Rock last Wednesday offered a hand to those who will take it. We offered it to lift humankind out of the darkness that is flooding the earth. We offered a beacon of light to those nearly drowning in the darkness of propaganda and the hopelessness of slavery, to a government that seeks to own the very breath from their lungs. We are dedicated to preserving freedom and liberty. And we pray that humankind will move beyond the matrix constructed by the Dark Lord to hide us from our true glory. We few chose to be there. We paid the price to be there. We give freely of our love to you and pray that you will not reject it. Take up the armor we have given you. Protect yourselves from the media and the education system and the courts and the lawmakers who have fashioned themselves into rulers. Get ready for the light, because it's about to get very bright. Let's crank it up. You meet me in Las Vegas on the 19th of April, and we will show you how. I'm going to run some commercials for this event, the 5D Unity event in Las Vegas. You want to find out how to be part of it, I'll show you the way later in the program. Let me talk a little bit about the battle for speech that's going on, and it's powerful. It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on probably since the days of Woodrow Wilson, maybe through the days of Vietnam. Maybe, we fight it every day in our schools, our courtrooms, our legislative halls, and maybe even at the place where we work. The hallmark of freedom and liberty is the right to speak one's mind. It was recognized by the Founding Fathers so well that it was made the First Amendment. Obviously, there are places where safety concerns may apply, where panic or calls for violence may be inappropriate and risk innocent lives, but the main theater for speech has always been the halls of academia. That is, until the education system surrendered to the war against speech. You see, the globalist syndicate has a strategy that involves 4 battlefronts to drive freedom and liberty from the planet, once and for all. And I do mean for all. The first thing about war that you must understand is that there are only 2 ways a war ends. Just 2. The first is for one side to surrender. They must give up the position and agree to stop pursuing their mission. The Axis powers surrendered to end World War II. The Confederacy surrendered after the American Civil War. The second way for wars to end is through victory. That is to say, the opponent never gives up and never surrenders, but they are wiped from the planet of living things. They are all killed. Their economy is destroyed. Their water is poisoned. Their men are killed. They cannot fight anymore. That's called victory. Why would anyone fight until the last man? Why would anyone declare that if they cannot pursue their dream, they would rather die? Ideas. But ideas cannot exist in the collection of minds of humankind without speech. We are not a peculiarly telepathic race, after all. We write, we speak, or we sing words to transfer ideas from one person to another in the pursuit of truth in the purest form we can. So when the globalist syndicate began its most modern form of war to capture the souls of mankind, it formed 4 strategies in our republic to achieve victory. Because we're not going to surrender. Ever. Because they know free Americans will never surrender. They knew that we would fight to the last man to keep from losing our right to speak. They tactfully monopolized the funding of all film, television, radio, and printed periodicals. They hire their soldiers and technicians to scrub every last syllable of free speech from all media. They produced movies with subtlety at first. You see, that which we abhor, we soon tolerate, then finally embrace. The syndicate has one goal, remember, not many, one goal. They wish to capture the souls of mankind. And death does not work. You just return again in another physical body, even stronger than before, because you are eternal beings having a mortal experience. They moved into the courtrooms to begin a carefully engineered system of precedents to write law through legal decisions. They began, case by case, victory by victory, writing law books as they proceeded to form a foundation of law that would allow them to rule the world, not govern it. As much as the Republic declared they would be a nation of laws equally applied, the legal system was carefully manipulated to allow the syndicate to rule by law. They would apply the law to corral the people while staying outside the fences themselves. The laws applied to the people, but not to the rulers. They moved into government. When they could not win elections, they took positions inside the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations to write laws that would remove our freedoms and our liberties. They wrote laws to stop us from moving freely about the country. They wrote laws to take our money and prevent us from accessing money. They took our lands, they took our water, and they took our privacy away through laws they wrote without our consent. When they could win elections, as soon as they sat in the official chair, they immediately began practicing unrighteous dominion over the people. They cheated to stay in power forever, working solely for the syndicate against the will of the people they were called to represent. Finally, they move their soldiers into academia. They write rules that allow them to secure tenure so they could not be removed from their positions. They gave themselves enormous incomes amassed trillions of dollars in real estate that they then rented to the students who were paying to attend their schools. They formed powerful political lobbies to make sure they could not be stopped from their agenda by anyone. But it was their agenda that was most effective. Students paid to sit in their classrooms to hear their propaganda every single day. Every day. Word by word and exam by exam, the students were trained to be soldiers in the syndicate's army of darkness. They were taught socialism, homosexuality, and conformity with their message of surrender. Anyone who stood up to speak freely was expelled, barred from entry, or destroyed. The entire concept of ideas was monopolized by the syndicate. The war is being engaged by Americans on all these fronts. We have been losing that war for many years. We have been making some progress in our fight to remain free. We won a major battle on November 8, 2016 against the syndicate, but it was only a battle. But the declaration of war against the syndicate was quite resounding, and I quote, "This is not a peaceful transfer of power from one party to another. This is the transfer of power from Washington, D.C., back to the American people. We've won a couple of battles in the courts, with now 2 Supreme Court justices appointed. We know that the Constitution is safe. Of course, the syndicate is artificially supporting the life of a dead justice to keep President Trump from appointing a third, but the fact remains that he will appoint at least 2 more justices in the next 6 years, protecting the courts from the syndicate for another 30 to 40 years. We have made some progress in the media business with the tsunami of alternate radio programs like this one. Thousands and thousands of podcasts and live programming from patriots all over the country have circumvented the monopoly held by the syndicate. Numerous attempts to censor or stop us have failed because our followers are many and they want to remain free. Don't you? This week, the president made some progress in the area of academia with a new executive order. President Donald Trump signed an executive order promoting free speech on university campus. Excuse me. Well, I have to have a little grapefruit juice already. Only 15 minutes in. Maybe I shouldn't be so passionate. What do you think? That's not going to happen. He said, "Today we are delivering a clear message to the professors and power structures trying to suppress, to keep young Americans and all Americans from challenging rigged, far-left ideology." The president said, "People who are confident in their beliefs cannot censor others." The executive order signed by the president requires universities to certify that they support free speech on campus in order to receive federal research grants. Oh, it's a lot of money. Taxpayer dollars should not subsidize anti-First Amendment institutions, and that's exactly what they are, Trump said. Universities that want taxpayer dollars should promote free speech, not silence free speech. It's a big deal. The president said that the $35 billion in federal government research grants would only be given to colleges that could certify their support of free speech and the open exchange of ideas. He said, "If a college or a university does not allow you to speak, we will not give them money. It's very simple. Trump has them by the financial balls, and he's not going to let go. Under the guise of speech codes and safe spaces and trigger warnings, these universities have tried to restrict free thought, impose tonal conformity, and shut down the voices of great young Americans like those here today, who he was speaking to. All of that changes starting right now. We're supposed to applaud. Students for Life's Ellen Whitman spoke about her fight with the college after administrators tried to block her from installing an exhibit of crosses representing the lives lost because of abortion. Turning Point USA chapter president Katie Mullen, a student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln who was harassed and bullied by administrators for running a conservative booth, also spoke. Polly Olson, a student of Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, sued after administrators tried to restrict her from handing out Jesus Loves You Valentines inspired by Scripture. It's really the core of America's freedom, and without freedom of speech, we don't have America anymore, Olson said. And so I challenge America to learn to love one another as Christ did on the cross for each one of us, and to speak your differences. It's okay. We're in a country of freedom. Perhaps we have had a few small battles go in our favor, but it's only because of the brave and the talented people who step forward to lay down their lives for freedom, because freedom is not free. It must be clawed from the grips of dark lords who seek to crush it forever by patriots who give everything to see it preserved. Now, the universities feel the pain. They are going to lose billions in funding, and they're going to lose their monopoly on the concept of ideas being shared between people freely. I maintain that once people are presented the two positions, freedom and slavery, that they will choose freedom. It is a truly great day for America. Thank you, Mr. President. I hope you're out there watching X Squared Radio tonight. America Free Radio. By the way, here's how it might apply. Students at Georgia Southern University were confronted by school staff and campus police last week while recruiting members for the Turning Point USA student group on campus. Staff told the conservative students that they needed to fill out paperwork in order to exercise free speech at the public university, and then proceeded to call the police when the students did not leave the public grounds. An administrator at Georgia Southern University told students that they needed to fill out paperwork in order to exercise free speech, which within the confines of the school's designated free speech zone is about this big. A specific area on campus that school claims is approved for exercising free speech as long as the space is reserved in advance. The students who were recruiting members for their Turning Point USA chapter decided not to leave an outdoor area on campus after GSU staff requested for them to do so, resulting in the cops being called in a last-ditch effort to force the students to comply with the school's perplexing demand. The apparent intimidation tactic, however, was futile, as the Turning Point USA students filmed their interaction with the officers, who admitted on video that they could not legally arrest the students for exercising free speech at the publicly funded university, as seen in a report by Campus Reform. The cop said, "I don't know of any laws you're breaking. If we do not leave, will we get arrested?" "No," said the cop. "Well, now you will be judicially referred," added the officer. "What does that mean?" inquired a student. "It means you'll go in front of the dean of students for violating Georgia Southern policy," responded the officer, suggesting that while the police cannot punish students for exercising their free speech rights on public grounds, guess who can? The university. They're telling me you're breaking policies, school policies. But if you're asking me about the laws, which is mainly what I do here, I don't know of any laws you're breaking. So before the police were called, a school administrator told the students that they needed to fill out the paperwork to request a reservation, even if they wanted to recruit within the bizarre free speech zone, a process that the administrator said would probably take 2 to 3 days, but advised the students to fill out the request 2 weeks in advance. When Turning Point USA students did not leave the area, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. You YouTubers, just hang out, because we don't have to disconnect now. We have brand new bumpers. We'll be right back after this.
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we lost our way. Western culture is once again remembering the healing benefits of CBD, the non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant. That's why more and more people who use CBD report relief from inflammation and chronic pain, balanced blood sugar and cardiovascular system, relief from muscle tensions, tremors, migraines, headaches, anxiety, depression, and the list goes on. The big question is, where do you get it? Aya Life is a 99% pure CBD oil made with all organic ingredients, and it's available to TFR listeners worldwide. If you use coupon code TFR at checkout, you'll get $5 towards your order. Head on over to ayalife.com now. That's AYA life.com.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER to get $10 off your first box. As a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER.
Jacob Frank Leibovich is the mastermind behind a global network of satanic cults. He taught that the creator God was evil. Jacob Frank proclaimed himself as the true Messiah. He vowed never to tell the truth. He rejected every moral law and declared that the only way to a new society was through the total destruction of civilization. Murder, rape, incest, and the drinking of blood were perfectly acceptable actions and rituals. His followers established the Marxist system and have infiltrated Islam and Judaism. He was the Messiah of the Illuminati.
EnigmaTV.com.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR, your protection from deception.
Radio. Glad to have you here with us. I'm going to play a quick commercial because I want to begin promoting the 5D Events conference that's coming up in Las Vegas. It's the 19th of April. There's plenty of room. This is going to be 40 of the best speakers in the country. And it's going to be very energetic. 4 speaking rooms going all day into the night and several panels. So here we go. Here's the commercial. 2019 is the year of light, so don't miss the most powerful light event of the year. 5D Events New Humanity Movement presents its global mega conference in Las Vegas the weekend of April 19th with 45 of the best speakers in the world. Experience the incredible evening panels with me as we discuss and solve many of the great issues the world is facing today. This is the main event for all light workers and soldiers protecting mankind from darkness. Turn off the propaganda machine and meet me in Las Vegas, April 19th to receive your armor of light. Register today at brooksagnew.com and click on the upcoming events button. That's brooksagnew.com. Okay, so that is the quick commercial. I'll play that a few more times in the night. You can see on the register button, that register button doesn't really work. It's just kind of a like applaud now button that's up there on YouTube. But you can go to x2-radio.com and click on the events button, and it's right there. Very easy to do. Trust me, Vegas is going to be rocking on April 19th. 45 great speakers. I'm going to be there. You should be there. Bring your book, and we'll get it signed, and you'll have a great time. I promise. Okay, so I'm just doing a quick static check. One of the people listening to the program, 1,000 people listening to the program, said that I had a little bit of static. Just wanted to make sure that the static is gone. So I'm checking both chat rooms here really quick just to make sure. One of the great things that we have to face with podcasted radio. So the bottom line is that freedom of speech is being attacked and has been attacked on our campuses all around the country. I guess it's okay to burn cars and smash windows and punch people in the face and kick old people to the ground. That's fine. That's all good free speech. But when you go to try to talk about freedom, liberty, the Constitution, and the Second Amendment, then you are beat out of the place. You're not allowed to speak about those things. Well, all that came to an end this week when President Trump signed his executive order. So we should be in really, really good shape for that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this deep state war. We're going to be doing quite a few updates on this because this is a real war. We're seeing one of the worst coups that we have ever seen in any government. I'm serious about that. We have seen coups take place in other countries before. Usually they involve hauling the current legislature out into the streets, putting them on their knees, and shooting them in the back of the head. Fortunately, that doesn't happen in this country, but it might as well, because we have an intelligence community in this country that is more powerful than any that's ever been on the face of the earth. And that entire intelligence community was marshaled to overthrow the American government. Our own intelligence community was used against us. And now it's all coming out. So if you read my book, Charm of Favor, if you didn't, well, then we have a problem. Because you need to get it. And you need to read it. Charm of Favor. It's available on Amazon, Kindle. You can get it. You would know of the balkanization of the Pentagon. It's a word. It means that the once unified mission of the Pentagon was divided into smaller states of opposition by an outside force. And that force is the syndicate. It's the global syndicate. I call it the Clinton Crime Syndicate, just to come up with a name for it in the book. Oh, make no mistake. They can't beat our military. They don't have to. They simply joined it. When I speak of the military, I do not speak of men with stripes on their shoulders. I speak of men with birds and stars. The promotion system inside the military occurs two ways. You need to understand this if you ever think about going into the military. You can enlist and you can begin the journey of promotion up through the ranks to major. Once you reach the rank of major, you must progress or leave. And there are two ways of leaving. You can be demoted, we call it being riffed, or you can retire. The other way to achieve rank is to attend the academies. The Air Force Academy, Annapolis, or West Point, they hold the keys to the kingdom. If you graduate from one of these schools, you are ensured a clear path to lieutenant colonel, that's what we call light bird, and on through to the stars. The highest rank is 4 stars, which are usually earned through major campaigns of war, but not anymore. It's not done that way anymore. We've not fought major wars in a long, long time, so stars are added through a complex and rigid system of politics. Oh yeah, politics. In the military, the syndicate knows that the commander-in-chief holds the authority to choose the men who will serve with the power of the stars. If he does not like a leader, he can remove him at will. If he likes a leader, then he can promote him at will. Presidents for 18 years removed leaders who supported America and promoted leaders who served the syndicate. Hail Hydra. I'm just saying, it's right out there. You can learn all about it. So, in the Marvel comic world, this would be the same as Hydra. Of course, Hydra could not enlist such loyalty without a supernatural power at the head. And you are very correct in surmising that the syndicate could not enlist such loyalty without a supernatural leader as well. Men will go insane and do practically anything for gold, but they will not commit mass genocide or rape and kill a child with glee in order to receive the authority to wear those stars, not without a supernatural power rewarding them for their oath during the ritual. And if you should at any moment hate yourself for what you have done, you are immediately invited to kill yourself and finally surrender your soul to the darkness forever. Now you know why so many hundreds of people have killed themselves while they slaughter others, or why they die in the service to the syndicate. Well, now I am vindicated. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Sean McFarland was at an event in Washington this week to discuss his experience training Iraqi and Syrian militaries. But he ended up delivering a warning for the U.S. military. Identity politics is a cancer, he said. It was a surprising comment, given that retired generals typically do not weigh in on politics, but also since the topic of his discussion, hosted by the right-leaning American Enterprise Institute, was building better Arab forces. You see, during the discussion, General McFarland spoke of navigating cultural and religious differences and trying to rebuild an Iraqi military in the wake of the Islamic State that was trying to be set up under Barack Hussein Obama in his offensive in 2014. All that money, all that intelligence, all those weapons, the destruction of Libya and the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, the assassination of Chris Stevens, the larceny of their thousands of missiles, rockets, and grenades, and rifles, and gold shipped to Syria to support and build their caliphate. All of that was dedicated. But during the question and answer portion of the discussion, the general was asked by an audience member to weigh in on how politics and polarization of the country was affecting our military. And guess what the general did? He replied, "My last job in the Army, I was the deputy commander for training and doctrine command. So all the recruiting and all the initial entry training was under training and doctrine command. And it is something that we do focus on. We call it soldierization. We assimilate people into the Army. We teach them what it's like to be part of a cohesive whole, a single mindset. And many people come from, well, soldiers come from everywhere, every walk of life, and we bring them all together. And it's remarkable that after basic training or their initial training, how acculturated they become. We break them. We break their souls, and then we rebuild them and give them a uniform. We give them their identity. We reward them for their military bearing. I mean, we used to talk about the melting pot in schools in America. I don't know if we still do anymore. I guess we don't. And I mean, I just heard a statistic recently that about 80% of American kids consider themselves as just plain old Americans before they enter high school. And about 2/3 of them, about halfway through college, become hyphenated Americans. We remove those hyphens in the Army, in the military. You know, you're a soldier. Next question. You know, we all wear the same patch on our right shoulder, the American flag, and that's what it's all about. And that's a process that most armies don't really go through. You probably don't have to go through it in some armies where everybody is mono-linguistic, mono-ethnic, or whatever, you know, Finland or someplace like that. But in the United States, we do. We should go through it in Arab armies, but they don't, and that's a significant difference. It is getting harder in the U.S. military to assimilate everybody and get everybody on the same playing field, the same team. Yet, it is. Identity politics is a cancer. And an army is a reflection of its society. And we have seen what balkanization looks like. I've been in the Balkans multiple times, and in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it's a dangerous path that we're moving along. And eventually it's going to become too hard for us to fix in the military. And I think we're already there. That's why I wrote the book Charm a Favor, to explain to you that inside the halls of the Pentagon are enemies, and they will kill, and they do. They commit larceny, they lie, they fabricate, they spy, and they kill inside our own military. And we see it inside the politics of our own country. Recently, there was another attempt by the DNC to destroy the Republic. You've already heard about this tacit effort to do away with the Electoral College. I know, it's pure insanity, isn't it? Because, and I had this discussion in the cab on the way back to the airport from Sedona. The guy said, well, I think we should go with the popular vote. I said, really? I'm in his cab, so I kind of have to say, I'm wearing a seatbelt back here, but you have the wheel. So, tell me, why is it you think the popular vote is a good thing? Well, I just think, the people should elect, the president. And I said, well, you realize that if we do away with the Electoral College, there'll only be 32 counties that will ever even hear a presidential speech. He said, no, why would you say that? I mean, everybody would have an equal vote all the way around the country. I said, well, yes, they would, but nobody's going to campaign to them. Nobody in Arizona is ever going to see a campaign notice. They're never going to see a debate. There won't be any more debates. They don't have to. They don't have to spend the money in Oklahoma, in North Dakota. They don't have to spend the money anywhere except Houston, New York, and Los Angeles and San Francisco. That's it. 32 counties will rule the country. And that's it. Now, there are people that would really like that. I mean, it would save a lot of money. You don't have to spend billions of dollars to run for president anymore. You can go to those 32 counties, campaign, and win. Simple. Screw the rest of the country. But that's why the Electoral College is there. The Electoral College is to make sure that if 51% of the country decided that cab driving is highway robbery, you should transport people for free at your expense. And they just come and take your cab. They just come and take it because it's a mob. Because when the more part of the people choose wickedness, then the entire country goes to hell. And that's what happens. The Electoral College is there to protect you. It's there to protect the small person, the individual. It gives all 50 states an equal chance at voting. It gives a president the ability to accumulate 270 electoral votes without winning New York and California. Imagine that. Trump won over 3,800 counties. 3,800 counties in the United States. Over that, he lost 32 counties. Hillary only won 32 counties. It turned out to be 3 million more votes. I don't know if they were all legal or not. Nobody knows. But she lost the election because she did not represent America. She only represented 3 cities. That's it. Maybe Chicago thrown in there. That's it. Look at the map, my friend. He said, so what is your solution? I said, well, the solution, really, if you want to know the truth of the matter, I think the solution is to have states put in electoral colleges. Don't you think California would be wonderful with an electoral college inside that state? Huh? That way San Francisco and Los Angeles couldn't beat the rest of the state. Sacramento, Redding, San Diego, Oakland, they would have a vote too. Don't you think it would be a great idea? You have a huge state with over 50 million people in it, 55 electoral votes. Don't you think it would be great to have an electoral college inside that state? Don't you think that a state legislature close to the people, right down the street, a neighbor, somebody you go to church with every day, they're not in Washington, D.C. They're right there in your neighborhood. If you have a political bone to pick with that person, it's easy to do. And every single one of those state senators and state representatives would have a vote. And it would be based upon the votes inside their individual districts. It's a beautiful thing. That's why the Founding Fathers came up with it. But there's an article that was put out by Tara Ross this week. As Maine goes, so goes Vermont. And that's why Franklin D. Roosevelt's campaign manager famously joked about this in the 1936 campaign after Roosevelt, a Democrat, won re-election as president in a massive landslide. It's a catchy line if you're a nor'easter. It refers to, let's see, Maine's long-standing reputation that the time for accurately predicting presidential elections based on its own governor's races, which had given rise to the widely used phrase, as Maine goes, so goes the nation. But Vermont may have voted the same way as Maine, but no one really knows. No one really thought Vermont would blindly follow Maine's lead and trust it to do the right thing. But unfortunately, that's exactly what they did. This effort to dissolve the nation we know as a republic is called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Okay, it's a fancy name. Basically, it means anti-American. It means America will no longer exist if this passes. It would require signatory states to award all of their presidential electors to the winner of the national popular vote, even if the other presidential candidate won by double digits, even if they won that state by 30%. That state at the convention would award all of its votes to the candidate with the overall national popular vote. Of course, it's unconstitutional. Of course it is. But you have to understand, with 38 states, they could do this. With 38 states, they could amend the Constitution and do away with the Electoral College, which would destroy America. America would be done. In 90 days, it would be finished. The compact would go into effect when 270 electors, enough to win the presidency, are committed to its terms. At its heart, the national popular vote proposal is as strange as expecting Vermont to concede its votes to Maine. The two are kind of rivals, if you know what I mean. The organization claims that voters across America should be able to dictate who Delaware electors cast their electoral college votes for, even if Delaware voters vehemently oppose the candidate who won the popular vote. In other words, what they're saying is that the voters in New York, the voters in Chicago, and the voters in Los Angeles and San Francisco should be able to tell the voters in Colorado, the voters in Arkansas, the voters in Tennessee, how to vote. In other words, we don't give a damn who you Kentuckians vote for. We don't care about Georgia or Alabama or even Florida. Screw you. We are the ones that elect the president. That's basically what we're talking about here with the National Popular Vote Compact, Interstate Compact. That's what they're saying. That's the destruction of the republic. So, when we talk about the globalist syndicate, it exists everywhere. It exists online. And there's an online monopoly that meddled in the election. Oh, you want to talk about Russian meddling in the election? I laugh out loud. You want Russian collusion? Well, that was nothing. Absolutely a flash in the pan compared with the globalist syndicate meddling with the election. New research from psychologist and search engine expert Dr. Robert Epstein shows that biased Google searches had a measurable impact on the 2018 midterm elections, pushing not a few votes, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of votes toward the Democrat candidates in 3 key congressional races and potentially millions more in races around the country. The study from Epstein and a team of American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology analyzed Google searches related to 3 highly competitive congressional races in Southern California. In every single race, the Democrat won. And Epstein's research suggests that the Google searches, biased these voters. It tipped these Democrat candidates over the edge. Epstein says that in the days leading up to the 2018 midterms, he was able to preserve more than 47,000 election-related searches on Google, Bing, and Yahoo, along with the nearly 400,000 web pages to which the search results linked. And guess what? Analysis of this data showed that a clear pro-Democrat bias in election-related Google search results as compared to competing search engines. Users performing Google searches related to 3 congressional races the study focused on were significantly more likely to see Democrat stories and links at the top of their results. You had to dig to find the truth. The total Democrat win margin across all 3 districts was 71,337 votes, meaning that biased Google searches could account for the vast majority of Democrat votes. Extrapolated to elections around the country, Epstein says that biased Google results could have influenced 4.6 million undecided votes to support Democrat candidates. Now you know what they're up to. But in the next segment, we're going to talk about what
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Special report, Mueller probe conclusions. I'm Evan Haining.
I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth. The greatest place on earth.
President Trump's words on his return to Washington following release of the Mueller report's conclusions. Republican Senator and Trump loyalist Lindsey Graham says the findings remove a cloud hanging over President Trump.
In a tweet, Senator Graham goes on to say, "Good day for the rule of law. Great day for President Trump and his team. No collusion and no obstruction." Graham is responding to a letter to congressional leaders from Attorney General William Barr that details the principal conclusions of Mueller's report. Barr's letter said the investigation did not uncover evidence that the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government to interfere with the 2016 election. But the letter also stated that Mueller did not reach a conclusion as to whether Trump had obstructed justice. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
I'm Evan Haining. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler says he will demand release of the full report and that Attorney General William Barr testify before Congress.
The American people are entitled to a full accounting of the president's misconduct referenced by the special counsel.
The report said while it did not conclude that Trump committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Republican Richard Burr, who heads the Senate Intelligence Committee, says the Attorney General should release as much of Mueller's report as possible. Passengers aboard that Norwegian cruise ship that called Mayday during a storm had a harrowing time before they were rescued. Jan Terbugen was a passenger.
Furniture would slide across the room, slide back, and with it came people in glass.
Well, passengers were rescued by helicopters. All are safe, and the ship has been towed to shore. March Madness continues. The UCF Knights edged the Duke Blue Devils to win a berth in the Sweet 16. I'm Evan Haining.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
back. Been away from you for 3 whole minutes. All right. By the way, if you want to call in, a couple things I would like you to take care of. You could always call in. The number is 213-233-3998. I will check the call board here really quick to see if there's anybody hanging out. No. 213-233-3998 if you want to be part of the program. You can go to tfrlive.com and you can join the chat room and you can send me any questions that you want to put in there. I will try my best to keep up with it. It's running the chat room at TFR, running the Google, or the Google. I was just talking about Google, wasn't I? I got a rash from it right here on my arm. The YouTube. And if you're listening to me on YouTube Live, which is pretty good because you get to see me because I'm right here and you can see my really cool office. I can slide over a little bit. You can see my really neat X Squared radio sign in the background. I made that in my garage. And my Captain America and Wonder Woman artwork in the background. So I would encourage you to do that. But while you're there, I want you to like it and share it because all that stuff helps. You know, it's a statistical world that we live in, and one of the things that helps it grow is if you do your part while you're sitting there enjoying the program. So like and share, and if you're not already subscribed, well, I'll wait. Okay, thank you very much. There's an interesting movie that has been made. I'm always amazed. By the way, while I was in Sedona, I was getting ready to speak. Lunch was over. I was the first speaker after lunch. Always a difficult thing to do because, you know, everybody's warm and comfortable in the dark, sitting in a chair, and they're well fed, and so you know what they do, right? But I did a good job of keeping everybody awake. But before I went back into the room, I'd set all my stuff up during the lunch time, and I was at my table selling my books, which you can see. The books are flipping through. Let's see if I can put that back up so you can see it. And let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Oh, that's one out. All right. So now you can see Remembering the Future, the Physics of the Soul and Time Travel is what I was speaking on. And a woman came up to me and said, "Hi, my name is Heather Ramsey. I work for a big producer out of Toronto, and we would like to make the Birth Trilogy into 3 feature films." So I was pretty excited about that. We exchanged information, and that is moving through the process, which I'm sure you're pleased about if you've read the books. If you haven't read the books, I'm not going to wait for you. I'm just going to keep talking. They're easy to get. Okay, just go to Amazon, get the books. If you get the books in paperback or Kindle, I give you the audio versions for free. So if you're not a good reader, don't worry about it. I already read it for you. You can listen to it on an airplane. I did. I listened to the books while I was flying because they didn't have, you know, an in-house movie in this airplane that had about 40 more people than the plane was supposed to carry. I mean, I was packed in so small. It was crazy. 4-hour flight. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Every single flight I've been on in the last 2 years has just been packed to the lights with people. I'm sure you're going to do the same thing. But someone that weighs 0.1 metric tons, like me, that's tall, has a hard time fitting into a space that only has this much room. I mean, you could see this on YouTube if you're looking. This much room between the seat and the seat in front of you. That's what you got to stuff your bag, your shoulder bag down into, and then scoot your feet in beside there, and don't move for 4 hours. Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. But I'm interested in the movies that are being solicited and funded. And one of the movies that is coming out is called Unplanned. Of course, you know, if you have read my bio or kept up with me over the last 15 years that I've been on the radio, I was the president of the Rutherford County chapter of Tennessee Right to Life, We had over 21,000 members, and it was the largest chapter in the state. So I'm very close to the subject, and I'm on the right side of the subject. You also know that I was a speechwriter for presidential candidate Alan Keyes, and that I have actually been asked by the campaign to give one of those speeches at a Republican fundraiser in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I was happy to do. Every year, the American government spends $500 million on Planned Parenthood. They send it to them. Every year, Planned Parenthood sends $56 million to the DNC. By the way, $0.0 to the RNC. And that doesn't even count the state money that's sent to Planned Parenthood. And that money does three things. It pays for the mass genocide of the poor and minorities. It pays the campaign expenses of the DNC. And it makes every single taxpayer in America culpable in the murder of millions of babies, whether they support abortion or not. Some states are taking action, and the new federal judges that our great president has put in place are making the right decisions for life. Earlier this month, the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a lower court ruling and upheld a 2016 Ohio law that rerouted approximately $1.3 million in state funding to abortion facilities like Planned Parenthood to federally qualified health centers. These are called FQHCs, such as, I'm trying to find one of the names of them, but there are several, like crisis pregnancy centers and alternatives to abortion. Of course, Planned Parenthood sued. They won, but it was overturned. And this is very, very good. They successfully managed to get an injunction blocking the law, with U.S. District Judge Michael Barrett ruling that stripping the abortion giant of its taxpayer funding would cause irreparable injury. The 6th Circuit Court disagreed with that, with Judge Jeffrey Sutton writing, and I quote, "Private organizations do not have a constitutional right to obtain governmental funding to support their activities. The state has no obligation to pay for a woman's abortion. Case after case establishes that a government may refuse to subsidize abortion services." And that's exactly what they did. And now, Ohio has followed through with its original plan and has defunded Planned Parenthood and other abortion organizations in that state. The Associated Press reports that the Ohio Department of Health notified recipients and contractors Thursday that it will end that funding within a month to comply with the law unless the court delays the effect of its ruling as Planned Parenthood requested. Now, while Planned Parenthood continues to claim that it's one of the most important healthcare providers for women in the United States, the facts and figures prove quite something else. It is truth. Its patient load has decreased significantly over the past decade. 700,000 patients lost since 2006. And its legitimate healthcare services like cancer screening continue to plummet. In addition, as abortions nationally continue to drop, Planned Parenthood's abortion numbers have increased year over year. It currently holds 35% of the national market share for abortions. By the way, it committed more than 330,000 of them, according to the most recent annual report. The Abortion Corporation has also been caught in numerous overbilling and fraud scandals, has been caught aiding and abetting sex traffickers and abusers, has lied to women about abortion risks and fetal development, and has been secretly videotaped revealing how its employees alter abortion procedures to obtain the most intact organs from aborted children so they can sell them for lots of money to third parties. Taxpayers, including you, overwhelmingly do not support paying for abortions and want more restrictions on abortion. In 2017, President Trump signed a bill allowing states to defend abortion organizations like Planned Parenthood. Defund, not defend. In addition, new Title X family planning rule change spells out that there must be a clear financial and physical separation between the Title X funds project and programs or facilities where abortion is a method of family planning. Planned Parenthood stands to lose about $60 million in federal funding with just these two states. So this new movie called Unplanned is coming out on the 29th. And the star to the movie, who does an excellent job, I've seen the previews. Now, mind you, there's no bad language in this movie. There's no sex in this movie. And yet the movie received today an R rating. That means that girls under the age of 17 cannot see this movie without a parent or guardian. Yeah, I would think a PG-13 would have been appropriate. I think girls down to 13 probably need to see this movie. But let me tell you a little special story. I heard this morning on an interview with her. As it turns out, while she's shooting the movie, she is coming home to see her mother. In the conversation with her mother gets very emotional. Basically, sit down, I need to tell you something I've never told you before. The actress's mother, when she was 19, found herself in an abortion clinic. The nurse that was about to perform this abortion on this 19-year-old unwed mother was pregnant, like 6 months pregnant. During the conversation and the preparation to go ahead with the procedure, she became sick to her stomach, and the young mother left the clinic. And she looked her daughter straight in the eye and said, "And I decided to have you." Yeah, this movie would have a different actress starring in it. I will tell you, and I know what I'm talking about. 0 times 0 does aborting a baby help the mother's health. Doesn't happen. Babies can be delivered cesarean quite safely and quite alive. Aborting a child does not help the health of the mother. In fact, it can kill her. And if it doesn't kill her that day, it will kill her another day. I want to talk a little bit about the New Zealand plan. If you read my book, Charm of Favor, you would know that the globalist syndicate utilizes mass shootings of innocent people as a tactic to convince communities of free people to surrender their right to bear arms. It is a social campaign of shame and political pressure that has been used by tyrants for hundreds of years to stop a nation from rebelling against tyranny. Right now, the American anti-gunners are applauding the latest shooting in New Zealand. They're thrilled that the globalist syndicate was able to produce the perfect knee-jerk reaction to last week's mass shooting that left 49 people dead. The staged and premeditated shooting was massively political in nature by targeting Muslims, with shooters who were actually not Muslims. Many are asking why those anti-gun proposals can't come to American shores, ostensibly to prevent further mass shootings. Although the banning of Democrats from owning guns would have stopped 96% of mass shootings ever recorded in America. And, well, there are a few reasons why they cannot transfer this New Zealand effort to the United States, but here's a really big one. You see, Section 3 of the New Zealand Order, effectively clarifying legislation for the New Zealand's 1983 Arms Act, it rules that most semi-automatic firearms are now to be regarded as military-style weapons. The order declares that illegal firearms will now include the following. Military classification. Ready? A semi-automatic firearm that is capable of being used in combination with a detachable magazine other than a .22 caliber rimfire, that is capable of holding more than 5 cartridges, and a semi-automatic firearm that is a shotgun and that is capable of being used in combination with a detachable magazine that is capable of holding more than 5 cartridges. There are not many of those out there. Most of them are the tube feed. You know, you feed the shell into the tube until you get 5 to 7 rounds and use a pump to eject the shells. There are very few cartridge-fed shotguns. It's kind of a special kind of a weapon, semi-automatic, sometimes bolt action. And this is a key issue, you see, because such a ban in America would explicitly conflict with the Supreme Court's ruling that in the most relevant Second Amendment case that I could find is the District of Columbia versus Heller. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can read Antonin Scalia's rationale for why most semi-automatic handguns used to defend American homes are constitutionally protected. Here's what he said. This is what the late Antonin Scalia said. And I quote, "There are many reasons that a citizen may prefer a handgun for home defense. It's easier to store in a location that's readily accessible in an emergency. It cannot easily be redirected or wrestled away by an attacker. It is easier to use for those without the upper body strength to lift and aim a long gun, like women. It can be pointed at a burglar with one hand while the other hand dials the police. Whatever the reason, handguns are the most popular weapon chosen by Americans for self-defense in the home, and a complete prohibition of their use is invalid." Makes total sense, doesn't it? Makes total sense. It's a big issue. That's the reason why the Founding Fathers put the amendment forbidding infringement on the right to protect yourself with a firearm second. They made it second, right behind the right to free speech. A burglar is not there to take away your free speech. Sorry to say. He's there to take your stuff. Only governments take away free speech. And you have the duty, according to the U.S. Constitution, to stop them from doing that. By the way, the court has refused to hear cases involving magazine capacity for a reason. It is a slippery slope from infringing on the style or performance of a firearm to infringing on the right to bear arms. A very short, slippery slope. Laws don't ban firearms capable of using a larger magazine, and words matter when it comes to laws, even in New Zealand. It seems that the use of the word capable means anything that can accept a larger magazine is soon to be forbidden, even if you only have a 5-round clip. If it's capable of accepting a clip of more than 5 rounds, that firearm is banned. And that means all firearms that use a magazine will be targeted by the proposed law. And it wouldn't apply to double-action revolvers, though, that can fire almost as fast as a semi-automatic. A law like this would also render all semi-automatic handguns as illegal, seeing as how pretty much all of them are capable of accepting a magazine of greater than 5 rounds. American anti-gunners, you're deceived. You should know this. just like New Zealanders are deceived by a man who's posing as a woman as your prime minister, he is deceiving you as well into thinking that mass shootings will disappear once they force law-abiding citizens to surrender their weapons. They completely overlooked the fact that if it was not for a good guy with the gun, the New Zealand mass shooting could have continued until the shooter ran out of ammunition. This looked far less like a mass shooting and much more like an act of war, by the way, perpetrated and organized for a specific reason. There was a very strong opposition to Muslims taking over Christchurch, New Zealand, but the government refused to listen. It sounds like anti-gunners found mercenaries willing to take matters into their own hands to attack Muslims while they were at church. The anti-Muslims got exactly what they wanted, and the globalist syndicate that runs the New Zealand government got exactly what it wanted. A good guy with a gun stopped the premeditated event short of a total massacre, but the event was exactly what the legislators wanted. The laws were already written. All they needed was the actual shooting to fit their agenda. And if you recall the facts, the Parkland High School mass shooting in Broward County, Florida, was not hindered by the FBI or the police in any way, because neither the fully warned FBI nor the police did a thing to prevent it. In fact, they officially refused to stop it while it was happening. The shooting ended only after the shooter ran out of bullets and left the school. Fake survivor Hog Boy got admitted to Harvard, and his team of opportunistic child actors were made rich beyond their wildest dreams by the DNC for marketing their propaganda campaign. There were costs to this fame and fortune, however, that go far beyond the government-sponsored mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. A genuine Parkland survivor, Sydney Aiello, 19, of Coconut Creek, took her own life this week with a self-inflicted gunshot after suffering survivor's syndrome, an all too common cumulative result of PTSD. Sydney and Meadow Pollock, one of the 17 persons actually killed in the shooting at Marjorie Stone Douglas High School, they were close friends. She was actually in school that day and saw the murders with her own eyes. All I can say is that I hope the Broward County Sheriff never sleeps again, and that Hog Boy sees his Harvard degree dipped in Sydney's blood. For the record, Hog Boy ditched school that day. His poor grades were overlooked by Harvard in exchange for his star power in promoting the Democrat anti-gun agenda. Those are the facts. So let's talk a little bit about sound and human DNA. A couple of the speakers at the Beyond the Matrix Expo in Sedona, Arizona, talked about human DNA coming alive and being energized, altered in some way, energetically, to either make the human body into something, more healthful, or to actually be involved in the birthing process to perhaps alter that DNA to create something a little more superior to an ordinary human exposed to the normal noise of everyday life. We're about 1 minute away from a break, so I'm not going to go deep into the story yet, but as soon as we get back, I will. Don't forget that the 19th of April is the 5D Unity event. in Las Vegas. 45 great speakers. I'll be there. I'll be speaking twice, once in the big room, once in one of the smaller rooms. Bring your books. If you don't have one, I will have them there with me, and you can get one signed. And you could be part of the Year of Light 2019. We're going to crank it up. You should be a part of it. If you live within a couple hundred miles of Vegas, I will see you there. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. We're halfway through X Squared Radio tonight. And America Free Radio runs free and live right here on YouTube Live. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be right back after this.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Ann, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Your home has needs. It needs a healthy, dry environment all year round. Start by getting rid of the worst air in the basement and crawl space, where the problems begin and make the whole house sick. Introducing the new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. It has advanced technologies to continuously reduce moisture, mold, and odors, and expel radon gases and pollutants. And now, Wave units include carbon monoxide detection to automatically expel air at a high rate and send you an alert. It also has an app so you can remotely monitor the conditions. Wave is a comprehensive, maintenance-free, affordable solution that will transform your entire home. Protect your home and family with what it needs. Give it a new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. For more information, call 888-717-WAVE. That's 888-717-WAVE. Or go to dryhealthyhome.com. That's dryhealthyhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
We exist in the security and comfort of our worlds. Paved paths, lights, and manicured lawns give us peace of mind that our world has been tamed, and we are its master. But other worlds exist on the edge of our sight. On the edge of our awareness, the shadows move. The woods fill with the unblinking eyes of the nightmares our ancestors warned us about. Some of us have stumbled into these forgotten realms, whether on purpose or completely by surprise. I'm Brent Thomas. Join us on the Paranormal Portal Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight Pacific Standard Time as we journey into the world of paranormal phenomena.
To the Paranormal Portal, if you dare. Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
back, everyone, to X Squared Radio. We've got quite a program going on for you tonight. Sound, the resonance of human DNA. You know, if you could hear the body, delve into its rhythms and its frequencies, what do you think it would sound like? I mean, well, I guess it depends on if you just ate or not. I'm kidding. Would we recognize patterns pleasing to the ear, consider them beautiful or musical? It is our biology, our harmony. Do you think it's ordered in any way? And if so, you know, so what? I mean, what is the music of the human body? Well, there are many ways to explore such questions, and one direct way is to access the frequencies of the DNA. It's been done. In 1988, the author, composer, posed these questions to Dr. David Deamer. He's a cell biologist at UC Santa Cruz. Now, Dr. Deamer is internationally known for his research on the origins of life. Some years before, he had created very interesting music cassettes called the DNA Suite and DNA Music, based on the mapping of sequences of bases in the double helix of DNA. And he was very intrigued, and he offered to help. So, one significant constraint with this project required that rather than mapping or assigning arbitrary pitches to hear patterns, the actual vibrational frequencies were to be collected directly from the molecular realm. Now, this is done in a process called spectroscopy. Think of it like this. If you have an acoustic guitar in your house, you could take it out of the case or put it in your guitar stand so the strings are facing outward. And then, in the same presence as the guitar, turn your stereo up really loud. Preferably, you know, either classical music or loud rock music, something other than just, you know, a bass beat. And what you'll notice is that somewhere in that music, one of the strings on that guitar will sound like somebody just reached out and plucked it with a pick. What is actually happening is the string on that guitar is matching a frequency in that music. And it is absorbing that energy directly from the music and then emanating its own sound. It's reacting to that sound directly because the wavelength of sound matches the wavelength and the tension and the resonant frequency of that string. Spectroscopy is where we actually measure the amount of energy that the guitar strings sucked out of the room. We call it the absorbance. It's an absorbance quantity. And if it really matches, really is a good connection, it's going to absorb at a very specific frequency with a very specific energy. So what this process did is they took a DNA, all the molecular bonds and all the links of double bonds and triple bonds and single bonds between carbon and nitrogen, between calcium and all of the things that make up the amino acids, and took those frequencies and collected them. Now, there are about 3 billion base pairs in the DNA of each human cell, and if they were strung out, they would measure probably close to 3 feet long, somewhere in that length. But each of these bases remains absolutely consistent in its chemical makeup. The 4 DNA bases, as you know, the amino acids are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, and they consist of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and double bonds and single bonds. And the bonds are like the guitar strings. Double bonds are a little bit closer, single bonds a little bit further away, because there's a different energy level for these electrons being shared back and forth between these atoms that make up the molecule. Now, that's basically the science of it. So the process of collecting the frequencies from the base of the DNA begins with a spectrometer. Normally, this is about the size of a toaster oven, and maybe a little bit larger for an older model. And we do this a couple different ways, but the most effective way that we have is FTIR, Fourier Transform Infrared. It uses a single laser, and what it does, it shoots the laser at a diffraction grating. A diffraction grating is like it's like a piece of quartz, and it has little prismatic slits cut in it. And what they do is they'll aim the laser at the surface of this, and they will move the diffraction grating, and what it does, it will create destructive interference, which will only allow certain wavelengths to escape the broad spectrum laser light. And then those frequencies are then absorbed by the sample that you put in, the DNA sample. And so as you're going through this scan of frequencies, you'll find one that just disappears. It just is absorbed. Well, that's exactly the frequency of that guitar string, that bond. That's how that works. So as the light passes through the sample, it's absorbed at what we call wave numbers. Wave numbers are inverse centimeters. So it's centimeter with a -1 to a -10th power. And we put that on a graph. And I put the graph in my notes. So if you want to access the notes, you can always go to tfrlive.com/X2 Radio. That's my program on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. And the notes are free. I have sometimes 30 to 50 pages of notes that I use to put on these programs. And I leave the information in my notes so you can do your own research. You can read a little further, a little deeper. I don't have a chance to go into every single thing that I collect, but I have enough experience I can explain these things to you on a cursory level, and then you can go a little bit deeper into that if you want to on your own, which I encourage, because then you'll be smart, like me. The point is that you can look at the wave pattern of DNA. Now, what we try to do is we get a pattern. We begin to recognize that pattern, and then we can say, oh, that's, an ester, or that is a urethane. We can classify because we know what these wave shapes look like. And of course, you do a lot of repetition in the lab. You're pretty much looking for one frequency at a time, one that is specific to your process that you're looking at, and then you're looking for that absorbance. If it's a really big absorbance, then you have a lot of that quantity in your sample. If you have very little absorbance, then you have a small amount. And sometimes what you're looking for is an endpoint in a reaction. So you're actually looking for a peak that's about that long, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and it finally gets to this point. You say, okay, the reaction's done. That's what we use FTIR for. So anyway, the problem of getting the frequencies that you pick up in the hearing range, that is between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz, isn't all that hard to do, because these inverse wave numbers will equate to usually audio frequencies, even though they're in the light range. And we can take harmonics of that to get it. One of my listeners, Jen, out in California, just made a comment about my ego, so I stand humbled by that. The problem of getting the frequencies within the audio range is not that difficult. We can use harmonics to get there. So the question of translating the light into sound is really more a philosophical one than it is a mechanical one. Not that difficult to do. Sound sped up can never be light, since the former depends upon molecules to push around in the air to make the sound cross the room, reach the tympanic membrane in your ear, vibrate that, turn that into electrical impulses that your brain recognizes as sound. If you can carry a tune in a bucket, then you would know, hey, that's a D sharp, that's a F flat. I mean, you'll know. The question is not that difficult to answer. So one can argue that What is important here is not so much the medium, but it's the ratios involved, right? It is getting the ratio correct and the relationships between those frequencies in order to make something that's recognizable, like a song. You recognize that on the radio because of the arrangement of the beats and the rhythms and the pitches, and you say, oh, that's a Beatles song, or that's Eminem. By discovering the patterns in light, we are simply translating into a sound those energies so that we can hear them, and that's how the music was created. So again, the 4 base molecules were measured: adenine, cytosine, guanine, thymine. Each base molecule, after being subjected to light, yielded about 15 or 18 different frequencies, 60 in all, which is a good range. Once the data was collected, it was iterized, that is to say it was stepped down into a hearing range and programmed into the Yamaha DX7, which is a pretty common synthesizer. I've used them a bunch of times in the studio. Very, very capable synthesizer, which would create the sound banks from any hertz number provided as an input. So you could put in 440, you could put in 532, you could put in 937, and it will create that tone, that note, in a variety of wave shapes: sawtooth, sine wave, square wave, just to give different synthesized sounds. So the tuning system on an ordinary keyboard is an artificial one. It's based on and adapted from the natural harmonic series. About the time of Johann Sebastian Bach, equal temperament as a favored tuning system came into being to solve the problem of modulating through different keys. Modulation occurs when in a piano, when a key is out of tune and you play a multiple set of keys, you'll sort of pick up a kind of a warble between the notes. That's because there's modulation going on. One frequency is overlaying over the other frequencies, but it's not overlaying mathematically perfectly. It's what we call out of tune or dissonant. And that dissonance creates the sourness to that note. We sense it right away. Sometimes we do it artistically, but most of the time we want it to be pretty perfect to have good music. So all this can be worked out with the Macintosh computer, lining these things up, and thus this art is created. But here's what gets interesting about it. Because, normally we deal with octaves, right? We have 8 notes: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? And then you have keys in between those. You have 12 tones that you can make between C in the middle of the piano and the next C 1 octave up. There are 12 keys. So before describing what the tuning sounded like, it is interesting to address a rationale for doing it at all. And I think this is a very interesting approach. You know who Pythagoras is, right? No. It's Pythagoras, not Pythagoras. Okay, it's Pythagoras. 6th century BC. Anyway, he's credited with explaining musical harmonics to the Western world. And it's reputed to have described a stone as frozen music. Pretty interesting, isn't it? So he really didn't know anything about physics, but he intuited that the mathematics of frequency, which occur in processes such as planetary rotations, cycles of the seasons, right down to the atomic world of elemental matter, they're not just lifeless pieces of rock. They're data. They reveal movements and rhythms, relationships and meanings, which may be loosely translated as stories, information. Stories in turn generate meanings and artistic expression. In fact, the word mathema, like from mathematics, mathema, comes from the old French mathine or mathien, to be aware, to awaken. That's what it means. That's why mathematics is the language of the universe. The art, then, assists in telling the story of the data. It's kind of mythic or mathic, if that's what you want to say. And there's a reasonable degree of certainty that deep within our molecular beings, because at the end of the day, we are all molecular biology, at least this bag of water that's talking to you on YouTube right now is just molecular biology. It always confuses me how I can eat the same tacos as my 30-year-old son, and he is young and I am not. It's the same molecules. We're eating the same food. But for some reason, that food makes old cells in me and young cells in him. That's a whole nother program. At another level, if the body recognizes itself in sound, might this mean something in terms of health? Could you make yourself more healthy with the right sound? Or at the very least, inspire the imagination and help to understand our adaptation to this third-dimensional environment. Anyway, the process unfolds, but really all we want to know is, does it sound good? Do we like the sounds? Well, there is in music what we call a microtonal world. And we're getting really into it more with digital music than ever because we have pitch bending. We have pitch matching software that can take care of these microtonal alignments. A first hearing of the 60 pitches from infrared spectra was discouraging. The scales and clusters they created sounded so strange and so alien that one despairs at first of ever creating a beautiful work of art or even a coherent, sensible piece of music out of it. Overall, the description might be tight relationships or densely packed microtones with curious overtones. So the 4 individual bases, again, adenine, cytosine, guanine, thymine, there will be an exam at the end of this presentation, so you can pass that because now you know what the 4 amino acids are. They're very similar in terms of the ratio relationships or in the distances between the separate pitches within each base because we are talking about, atomic distances, different arrangements of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. It doesn't really yield that much of a different frequency, but it does in infrared scale. It's quite a few wave numbers different. When we scale that up to music, the music's still pretty close to one another. So if they're configured like a musical scale, that is to say, if they're arranged or they're composed, from the lowest frequency to the highest frequency, there's about a 2.5 octave range. That's pretty good. Even for modern music, that's pretty good. Although I have to say, there's a lot of music out there that they don't even have 1 octave. In fact, they probably don't even have 3 notes. Maybe 3 chords, that's about it. Well, I could use an example, of course. How about Madonna? How about the Beatles? I mean, the Beatles can get pretty complex, but still not that many chords. So 2.5 octaves gives us a lot to work with. It's a noticeable gap. It's a big distance. It's a major 6th, minor 7th in all these bases. Intervals on the keyboard are named major and minor 2nds, 3rds, 6ths, 7ths, depending on how many steps they are away from the beginning note or tonic. A major 6th in the scale of C would be C to the 6th note, or A, above, and minor 7th would be C to B flat above. To sing a minor 7th interval begins Bernstein's There Is a Place for Us from West Side Story. There's a minor 7th. In addition to major and minor intervals, we also recognize the perfect 4th. That's C to F, which would be like rock and roll, 1-4-5 rock and roll. The perfect 5th, C to G, and the tritone, which is C to F flat. Yes, I can do C to F flat on the guitar better than I can the piano. It's easier to do. So the smaller microtonal intervals or ratios tend to rub against each other when heard, creating beats like warbles. You can hear it in the music. You can sense it with your chest if you turn it up loud enough. And the beats occur when two frequencies are extremely close together within a few hertz of one another, like 254 hertz and 257 hertz. You're going to create a modulation. You're going to hear that modulation because the wave, the energy is going to go up and down as one wave lays over the other wave. The frequencies will be heard as the same pitch, C, but slightly out of phase. And the phasing, this modulation, results in occasional louder moments or wah-wah beats when they phase together. To the ear, this bears a striking resemblance to the quality of aliveness. Sometimes we call this distortion. Like in a guitar, when you add distortion to the guitar, you don't get the nice clean, 6 strings against the electric pickup. When you add distortion, you're overlaying modulation on top of those waves, and you get a more grinding, more alive sound. It sounds more like rock and roll. So as the microtones are played over and over on the synthesizer, some beautiful combinations begin to appear. And I wish I could give you the example of it, but the best example that I can come up with would be maybe the music of Julian Forrest, which I played on this program a couple weeks ago when Julian Forrest was being interviewed on this program. If you want to go back and listen to it, you can. If you missed the Beyond the Matrix Expo in Sedona, Arizona, you missed a great performance, for one thing, because it was just totally fresh. It was totally resonating with the people that were there. But you don't have to worry about it. You could see it again. Well, not exactly again, because it's a live performance and everyone is different. You could see it on April 12th and 13th back in Sedona. He's going to be playing again. And I would highly recommend getting his music. I just like it. I call it space guitar. So, in addition to the difficulty of tone production, microtones play havoc with the idea of key or tonality, and what one is working with the clump of random sounds with no seeming tone order or organization at all. However, something very interesting begins to happen. After you experiment with this weeks and weeks and weeks, you begin to pick up patterns, and you'll be able to work with these patterns. Now, this is going to sound, what I'm going to say to you is going to sound strange, but you don't have to remember it. But I'd be very impressed if you did. Adenine, which is one of the amino acids in DNA, comes out as 545.6 hertz. Guanine, 550. The average is 544.2. Thymine is 543.4, and cytosine is 537.8. Now, for most pianos are tuned to about 554 hertz for middle C. Okay, an acute ear would be able, C sharp. An acute ear would be able to discriminate between 554 and 544, an approximate quarter tone. I think most people could pick that up. If you were listening, most people with perfect pitch could sing that difference. They could sing that quarter note difference. If you played that note and then said, find that note on the piano, a person with perfect pitch who knows how to read music could find that key the first time. So it's important to emphasize that this discovery was cemented musically in the compositions first by ear and not by the data. They kind of went for what would really sound good. And the interesting thing is that once this music was played, the people that listened to it seemed to feel better. Their physiology over prolonged periods of listening to this music seemed to perform better. Now, I don't mean just, putting earbuds in like I have here. If you're looking on YouTube, you can see my little earbuds that are in here. I don't mean that. I mean the vibrations going through the body. Actual speakers in a room with the vibrations going through the water and through the cellular makeup of your body. what began happening is people began to see homeopathic improvement in their health condition. Pain would go away, nervousness would go away, digestion would be calmed. Things began happening. And this is now turned into a complete science. I have to ask Jen out in California. She probably knows all about this. But the trick is to hear the music that is the body. And if we can do this, the meaning of the body can be transformed. It becomes not a blind, silent, doomed, machine with rusting parts. It's a glorious composition. And I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be doing a little bit more experimentation with it myself and see what I come up with. We'll take a break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. X Squared Radio coming right after this.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
Special report, Mueller probe conclusions. I'm Evan Haining. Attorney General William Barr's summary of the special counsel's investigation says there's no evidence that the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with Russia in its attempt to influence the 2016 election.
There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration.
But House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler says that is not what the Mueller report stated.
President Trump is wrong. This report does not amount to a so-called total exoneration. Special counsel Mueller was clear that his report, quote, does not exonerate, close quote, the president.
Still, correspondent Abby Phillips says the White House is buoyed by the news.
His counselor, Kellyanne Conway, is saying that this is the day that he won the 2016 election all over.
Major damage and continuing to move downstream. But riverfront roads are flooded and Kansas City residents are urged to conserve water. The Duke Blue Devils advanced to the Sweet 16 by the barest of margins, beating UCF 77-76. Westwood One Sports' Brendan Gaudin has the exciting final call.
UCF inbounding on the side of the front court. Allen will trigger. Everybody in the building standing, all 18,000. Allen looking, gets it in up top to Taylor. 5 seconds, he's on the right wing. He drives inside, leads in, puts it up, no good. Tap back, no good. Dawkins, the rebound, and the ball game is over. The Blue Devils escape.
Wow, and North Carolina's Tar Heels also off to the Sweet 16 after beating the Washington Huskies 81-59. I'm Evan Haining.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to X Squared Radio, final hour. If you want to call in, I would encourage you to do so. We can have a conversation. It is 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. We are live on YouTube as well. We made another connection with Skype. A lot of complaints about hissing out there. It's just one of the things that happens with technology. No big deal. I want to talk a little bit about the student loan bubble. It's 2019, and Americans are more burdened by student loan debt than ever. Among the class of 2018, 69% of college students took out student loans, and they graduated with an average debt of $29,800. When I graduated, I had a debt of about $38,000. It took me about 10 years to pay it off. You've probably heard another scary statistic. Americans owe more than $1.56 trillion in student loan debt, spread out among 45 million borrowers. That's about $521 billion more than the total U.S. credit card debt, which also probably will never be paid off. But how does this break down to a more granular level? Are student loans being used to attend public or private universities? Is it mostly from four-year or graduate degrees? What percentage of overall graduates carry debt? Are more graduates utilizing private student loan consolidation and refinancing? So I want to take a look at this so that we can understand just how dangerous this student loan bubble is. And probably the more important question is, did we get our money's worth? So let's take a look. You know that 65% of seniors graduating from public and nonprofit colleges in 2017 had student loan debt. That means that 35% were able to work their way through college, paying their way as they went. I worked one full-time job during the summer and then two part-time jobs during the school year to make ends meet. Oh, by the way, I also went through college with 4 small kids at home. Yeah, so it can be done. So the average debt at graduation from public and nonprofit colleges was about $28,650 in 2017. That was only a 1% increase from 2016. But I know quite a few students that got degrees that have $200,000 debts. Now, this is a lot different than $26,000 or $28,000 or $30,000. $30,000, and I've proposed lots of ways of paying this off. No, I have not suggested forgiving the debt. Holy crap. That's the stupidest idea ever. 15% of the student debt held by the graduating class of 2017 was private. 48% of borrowers who attended for-profit colleges, they actually default within 12 years compared to 12% of public college attendees and 14% of nonprofit college attendees. So it usually means that, what I could draw from that from statistics is that the 48% that graduate from for-profit colleges end up with a crappy education, and they're not able to earn the money to make the payments on the debt. And by a for-profit college, I mean something like Phoenix University online. I mean like, universities that are set up for profit. They're not nonprofits. They're not public colleges that have free tuition for in-state residents, which a lot do. Even in California, you can, the UCLA is a way different tuition structure than USC. Why? Because UCLA is one of the 11 state colleges and USC is a private school. Would you get a better education at USC? Hell no. But most of the students, as it says here, 48% of borrowers who attend these for-profit colleges default within 12 years. That means they miss a payment. So the other thing that we can get if you are of a certain income level or below is a Pell Grant. Now, none of my kids got Pell Grants. I just made too darn much money. But I got a Pell Grant when I was going to school. Pell Grants, 88% of graduates who received Pell Grants had student loans in 2012 with an average balance of $31,200. 53% of those who did not receive Pell Grants had student loans in 2012. Let's see here if I can skip down here. They borrowed an average of $26,000 or $4,750 less than those with Pell Grants. As I said, the only way to get a Pell Grant, you have to be at a certain income level or below. So if you're at a certain income level or below and you get a Pell Grant, it means that all the rest of the money that you need to go to education, you're going to borrow, because you don't have to pay it back until starting 10 months after you graduate or after you stop going to school. If you drop out, you still got to pay, in which a lot of students end up not being able to pay because they borrowed too much money for the education that they got or didn't get. If you're at a certain income level or above, you don't get the Pell Grant, but it also means you're probably paying more of the tuition out of your pocket, which is evidenced by these numbers, actually $4,750 less spent. So it didn't mean that the university cost any less. It just meant they paid for more of it out of their pocket up front. So more than half of undergraduates, these are people that don't take advantage of federal students borrowing private loans before they've exhausted their available federal loans. In 2011, 2012, 48% of private loan borrowers attended schools that had tuition costs of $10,000 or less. When I went to school in 1994, I graduated in 1994. I went to school in 1992. I finished a full chemistry degree in 2.5 years. I took 21 hours a semester, a double load each summer, and I graduated in August of 1994. And I was on the dean's list. And I paid most of my way through. I ended up with $38,000 in debt after I finished my advanced degrees, and I ended up paying all that back because I made lots of money, and I was able to pay it back because I got my degree in chemistry instead of psychology, okay? Sorry, we just need more chemists than we do psychologists. So let's look and see the graduate debt by degree. This is going to be interesting. An MBA. I almost got an MBA. I actually went to my supervisor when I was working for W.R. Grace, and I said, hey, I want to get a master's degree. I'm thinking about an MBA. He said, no. Don't get an MBA. I got an MBA. It didn't help me a bit. Just put me a bunch in debt. Did not help me in this industry. If you want to get a degree that really helps you in industry, in manufacturing, you should get a degree in quality. Yeah, quality. A master's degree in quality, which is basically a souped up style of statistics. I did that. I went back, got my master's degree in quality, and the entire manufacturing world opened up to me like a clamshell of secrets. I made a tremendous amount of money, but I also saved or created over 10,000 jobs in the United States on my own. So that's the secret. Not an MBA, but the MBA, $42,000. Master of Education, this would be somebody that wants to either teach on a university level or become a principal or a school administrator, that kind of level, Master of Education, $50,879. A Master of Science, which is what I had, $50,400. Master of Arts, which would be a teacher, a music, philosophy, humanities, English, those kinds of things, $58,536. Law, $140,616. Because it's a long process, you have to get the JD, and then you have to go to law school. And then you have to take, of course, the the bar exam, which costs a little bit of money, and you're not making much money while you're studying for the bar. $140,000 for a law degree. Can it be paid off? Yeah, it can be paid off in about 5 years if you're a successful lawyer or work for a good firm. It can be paid off in about 5 years. You're talking about, $25,000, $30,000 a year paid off on a student loan. It's best to get it out of the way. You're going to have to pay it off anyway. You might as well pay it off, when you don't have a lot of responsibility and kids at home and a home to pay for and all that stuff. Just get it done. I suggest, well, let me read these other two. Medicine and, of course, health sciences, $161,772, and other master's degrees, $55,489. So obviously these student loan debt statistics are very low. Some of them can be in the $200,000 range with the wrong school. I don't think that the sheepskin has that much to do with the job that you're going to get. I graduated from a University of Tennessee campus called Tennessee Technological University in Cookeville, Tennessee. 14,400 students, not as big as UT, but a lot cheaper than UT, and it's considered one of the top 15 engineering schools in the country. Tuition in those days was $770 a semester for full-time. Full-time was 12 credits. I told you I took 21, which I did. That meant 9 credits were free because I was already full-time. Yes, I took advantage of it. I gamed the system, but I was smart, and I buckled down, and I took the exams, and I graduated in the top 0.1% of graduating seniors in 1994. It can be done, even when you have small kids at home. So what I think should be done is forget about the default. Just forget about the bubble. All you have to do is, once you enter the federally insured or federally underwritten student loan world, you have a letter added to your Social Security number. So if the last 4 digits are 2225, it would be 2225A or 2225S, whatever you want to call it. As long as that suffix is on your Social Security number, you will never have a refund check. What will happen is, at the end of the year, when you have paid in your taxes and you calculate your taxes, hopefully you have overpaid them a little bit. Normally you would get a refund check. As long as that suffix is on your Social Security number, you don't get that refund. That refund goes to pay off your student loan. Now, if it takes you 20 years, 25 years, 35 years to pay that student loan off, that suffix will remain on there until it's paid off. Is this going to cost you anything? No, it's not going to cost you anything. If you got $2,000 or $3,000 coming back at the end of the year, it goes on your student loan. In 10 years' time, you will have paid $30,000 on that student loan. Now, obviously, I think the interest rates have to be fairly low, because that $3,000 is just going to pay the interest on $50,000 or $80,000 or $90,000 over that period of time. But get low interest and you put the suffix on there, you will never have a problem with the defaulted student loan, because you'll always be making payments on it, unless you move into your parents' basement and don't work. And if that's the case, you're pretty much a lost soul anyway. All right. I did a little bit of research because I came across a term called the Weaponized Narrative Project. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? The Weaponized Narrative Project. I think we have seen, and we've listened to during the breaks on this program tonight, Weaponized Narrative. It's an interesting project. It's sponsored by Arizona State University. It's called the Weaponized Narrative Project. Smart people from all over the world have contributed and have, here's the definition they offer. Weaponized narrative is an attack that seeks to undermine an opponent's civilization, their identity, and their will by generating confusion, complexity, and political and social schisms It confounds response on the part of the defender. Sounds good, doesn't it? It defines a strategy of defining one's enemy with different directions, different reasons, different advice for almost every emotional set of beings. The tactics may include name-calling, labeling, and even redefining words or mores so people pack the wrong things in their social bag of tricks that help them get through the day. And that's what I found most interesting about their website. Right after saying that narratives can be weaponized, which I'm sure most of you agree with that, they provide an example. Watch this. How does weaponized narrative work? A fast-moving information deluge is the ideal battleground for this kind of warfare, for guerrillas and terrorists as well as adversary states. A fire hose of narrative attacks gives the targeted populace little time to process and almost no time to correctly evaluate. It is cognitively disorienting and confusing, especially if the opponents barely realize what's hitting them. Opportunities abound for emotional manipulation, undermining the opponent's will to resist. So how do you recognize a weaponized narrative? I mean, how do you know you're being targeted? Well, efforts by Russia to meddle in the elections of Western democracies, including France and Germany, as well as the United States, are in the news. That, right there, is a weaponized narrative. The Islamic State's weaponized narrative has been highly effective. Even political movements have caught on, as one can see in the rise of the alt-right in the United States and Europe. I don't even know what alt-right means. We are the mainstream media. We are the mainstream media. We are the ones that elected the president. We are. The people that listen to X Squared Radio are the people that elected President Trump. Not the people that listen to CNN, not the people that listen to ABC, not the people that listen to NBC or MSNBC. They're not the ones that elected the president. They're not the mainstream. That's the fake stream news. That's a big difference. It's a huge difference. You see, we are America. Everywhere I go, I meet Americans who love being American. They love freedom. They love liberty. They love President Trump. And without exception, I see that these people have turned off the news. They don't watch TV for hours a day. They go to conferences, they read books, they listen to podcasts, and they discuss deep issues of the day with their friends. I also meet people who absolutely hate, with a passion, all of those things. And here's what I see in the Weaponized Narrative Initiative. The people who hate America also want socialism. They want a free income for sitting at home and doing nothing. They want free health care. They want free food, free energy, open borders, and free education because, after all, if you're not working, you might as well take a class in something, right? I also see that without exception, every single one of those people, every single one of them, watch CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and you get the picture. The weaponized narrative is real. It's planned and it's centrally orchestrated by a single group. They know that in the information age, it is the information that is the cheapest and most effective weapon that will win the war. And you know how wars are won. They're only won when the enemy surrenders. Me and my friends, we're never going to surrender. My kids, maybe. My grandkids don't have a chance of survival unless we find that building, that central building, and we wipe it clean. I got a question for you. This is a tactical question in war. How many cruise missiles does it take to level a building that covers an acre of ground? 1? 10? 20? Don't you think it's a little strange that America launched 107 cruise missiles against a single building in Syria? There was no collateral damage. There was barely a window broken outside that address. But why so many missiles? I would love to sit down with Mr. Pompeo and ask him that question. Really, I would. Oh, one more thing. The weaponized narrative, it only works when you drop your guard. So keep your guard up. Keep listening to Radio Free America. Advances in artificial intelligence will soon enable highly persuasive and manipulative machine-generated communications. That's a very complex way of saying something very simple. Imagine an automated system that uses the mass of online data and easily available marketing databases to infer you, to figure out your personality, to your political preferences, your religious affiliation, your demographic data, your interests. It knows which news websites and social media platforms you prefer. It knows what movies you watch. It knows what food you buy. It knows what kind of car you drive. It knows the texts that you send and receive. It knows all that stuff. Now, the system dynamically creates content, everything from comments to full articles, specifically designed to plug into your particular psychological frame and achieve a particular outcome. You've already seen this. You've seen it on Facebook. You've been walking through the store and you've said, oh, I think I'd maybe get a cat. And the next thing you know, here are cat food ads on your Facebook. You already know this stuff is going on. So the AI system has a chatbot. A chatbot can converse with you through text, through voice, and even video, even CGI. Now, talking to the chatbot will be nearly indistinguishable from talking to a human being, and it'll be able to operate in multiple languages. I mean, I've built one of these myself in a CRM program, customer relations management program. And with enough time, I could make my position with any number of possible questions or concepts a person could type into the chatbot. My AI chatbot will engage you in online discussions in text. It will debate you, and it will present compelling evidence to persuade you to buy the product that I developed the chatbot for. Now, you make it use information from databases or social media to discover your desires. And I use this information to direct you to the product or solution being sold by the company using my chatbot. My AI system, it's not really elaborate, but it is artificial. It'll be able to detect human emotions as well as, or better than most people can. It isn't really that hard. I can tell when someone's angry, when they're lustful, when they're confused, or when they're friendly and open. That's the basics of it. Now, similarly, the chatbot will mimic convincing human emotions that resonate with your own personality and your emotional state. I can respond to that. After all, I'm writing the responses and I'm writing the combinations. And I mean that in a factorial sense of the word. The permutations are finite and they can be selected as quickly as any human can do it, or maybe even faster. My AI chatbot is a learning machine, so it will figure out the approaches and the messages that best influence you to buy that product or that service. It will select for success. It'll keep improving. Every single time it fails, it will learn something. Every time it succeeds, it will learn something. If it'll run A/B tests back and forth to figure out which color, which button, which text style, all these things to figure out what is the best to work for you. You already do all this with Facebook ads and Twitter ads, and it all runs with A/B comparisons. You know, you've had people say to you, oh, I know somebody just like you. Doesn't that just piss you off? I mean, there isn't anybody like you, right? And no one like me, right? So, I mean, it's really insulting to say that to people. So Here is where the Weaponized Narrative Initiative gets frightening. They're demanding U.S. Congress to authorize the Department of Homeland Security to protect U.S. public from foreign online propaganda manipulation and disinformation. It sounds good, but who gets to determine if it's truth? Huh? Is it Rachel Maddow? Is it Jim Acosta? Is it Adam Schiff? No thanks. That's the problem. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back for the final segment of X Squared Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured truthfrequencyradio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/sign-up. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
This is iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio makes you want to move.
When you have a great melody,
a song will last forever.
Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
Did you know you can listen to Truth Frequency Radio on iHeartRadio? Just download the app to your smart car, smartphone, or smart TV and get the best of TFR wherever you are.
iHeartRadio.
I'll see you there.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with TV so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear right here. Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
Your protection from deception.
TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me?
so glad you could be here with us. And I'm so happy to be here with you. I had to run an archive last week because I was at the Sedona conference, but it's good to be live with you again. I want to talk a little bit about the Justice League because many of you have been writing me, asking me, stop me on the street and say, when is justice coming? During most of the Russia Gate investigation against President Donald Trump, I kept saying, all roads lead to Hillary Clinton. It's why I wrote the book, Charm of Favor, a true story of the rise of the Clinton crime syndicate. It is the wealthiest, most powerful, and most treacherous criminal organization to have ever existed on the earth. Anyone with 3 working brain cells knows this, including Rachel Maddow, whose tears of disappointment are practically ridiculous. I think they're delicious, to tell you the truth. Rachel and I wrote a book, not together. She wrote her book. I wrote my book. We introduced them at the same time in the year 2012. Mine went to number 1. Hers only made it to number 6. So, of course, she's sold a lot more books than I have because she has a television platform. But Robert Mueller's investigation was designed from the very beginning to create something out of nothing. In fact, the basis of the creation was false. It was a lie. And they did this admirably. It was so effective that it absolutely paralyzed the country for more than 2 years, just like Europe has been held hostage by Brexit. And all of this because in the end, the syndicate, I call the Davos crowd, refused to accept that the American people no longer believed their lies about the benefits of their neoliberal globalist agenda. I showed you the vehement scowls aimed at President Trump's back while he was at Davos. Oh, it was powerfully offset by the stunning applause he got when he spoke. But I guarantee you, at Davos, there were several people who wanted him dead. Hillary Clinton's ascension to the presidency was to be their victory, along with the Brexit vote. They were meant to establish once and for all that people should be ruled by philosopher kings in some distant land. Hillary's failure was epic, and we all know her strategy. But let me recap it for you just succinctly, this thing. They wanted to undermine President Trump's legitimacy before he even took office. They wanted to accuse him of what Hillary actually did, collude with Russians and Ukrainians to affect the outcome of the election. They wanted to paralyze Trump on his foreign policy desires to scale back the empire. They supported the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and other thought controllers to attack populism and radicalize them, further undermining our political system. They wanted to polarize the electorate over the false choice of Trump's guilt. And they wanted to seize control of the Department of Justice and Congress so that they could not uncover the massive corruption in the intelligence agencies and in the US and the UK. And they wanted to isolate Trump by attacking every friend, every staffer, every cabinet member Trump could have by turning them against him through prosecutorial overreach. Hillary should have been thrown to the wolves after she failed. When you fail, the people she failed, and cost them the money she cost them, you lose more than just your funding. But here's the question, Earth Explorers. Why hasn't it happened? Because Hillary has so much dirt on everyone involved. Once this thing started, everyone went along with it, lest she burn them down as well. What's the nature of the dirt, do you think? I have a feeling it has to do with pedophilia. I have a feeling she has pictures, she has films, she has testimonies, she has gravestones. And she was willing to tear it down to keep from having it, no matter how much damage it would do. She's worse than the Joker from The Dark Knight. Because while the Joker's unfathomable to someone with a conscience, there's little stopping us from excising him from the community completely, even though Batman refuses. Whatever you do, never forget this one fact. After this program ends tonight, after you pick up your life at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning and you start back to work, or if you're listening to this as an archive, remember this. Hillary hates you. She truly hates you, and she seeks your subservience to her will. President Trump stood up to her directly and attacked. You don't remember the New York dinner. It was a roast, actually. Here's what President Trump said when he took the podium. Hillary wrote a book called It Takes a Village. She should know she took several in Haiti. Ouch. That was an annual roast in New York. He was mean to her face, in front of her friends, and he was unafraid. We all knew Russiagate was never a sustainable narrative. Everybody knew it. I think there were some people that wanted to believe it worse than anything, but in the end, they knew it was fake because they're the ones that paid for it. It was ludicrous from the very beginning, and now it has ended with 2 hamburger buns, no all beef patties, no pickles, no onions, and no special sauce. Sorry to say, nothing. Mueller thought all he had to do was lean on corrupt people and threaten them with everything, and they would turn on Trump. He would resign in disgrace from the public outcry, but it didn't work. In the end, Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, Roger Stone, they all held their ground, or they perjured themselves into the whole thing falling apart. Andrew Weissman's resignation last month was your telltale that nothing was going to happen. There was no blood in the meat. Mueller would pursue this to the limit of his personal reputation and no further. He hasn't been involved in the investigation at all this year. So, just like so many other politicians always bet on the fecklessness of politicians, they will always act selfishly when put to the test. And now the report is in, isn't it? There are no new indictments. And by doing so, he is saving his reputation for the future. And that is your biggest tell, that Hillary's blackmail is now worthless. They don't fear her anymore because Russiagate outed her as the architect. Anything else she has is completely irrelevant in the face of trying to oust a sitting president from power. Everyone else who was blackmailed into going along with this lunacy will begin cutting deals to save their skins and to keep from going down with her. Oh, the outrage over this will not end. Trump will be president when he stands for re-election. I guarantee you that. The Democrats do not have a chance against Trump as of right now. When he was caving on everything back in December, it looked like he was done. That there was enough meat on the Russiagate bones to make Nancy Pelosi brave. But suddenly, even she backed off on impeachment talks. Trump is going to slaughter them on the socialism front. It's exactly why I believe the Democrats, the syndicate, the global syndicate, the Clinton crime syndicate, is more dangerous than ever. There is no danger of them winning the election. In fact, they are doomed to losing the House if they do not act soon. It is the form of action that should frighten us. There is a weapon out there, somewhere. Mass shootings aren't enough to get their agenda passed anymore. It's going to require something bigger, much bigger. I know the search for the weapon is expanding. I know they're looking for it. With the Mueller report completed, it appears to be just so much toilet paper, it's going to require a massive act of terror to blame on Trump to get the people behind them again. There's only one answer. And Obama's people are still in place to protect him. We know justice must be served. We know that these people cannot be allowed to die of old age as free oligarchs. They must be arrested. They must be tried. They must be convicted and sentenced to the appropriate punishment. And it must happen swiftly and quietly. No news coverage in the courtroom, no lawyering up for a long multi-million-dollar game of interrogatories and legal sidesteps. Lies are expensive to maintain. Truth is cheap to defend. Think of the billions in opportunity costs associated with this. Once the costs rise above the benefits, change happens pretty quickly, my friends. It better. If there is any hope of salvaging the center of this country for the Democrats, the ones that voted against Hillary in 2016, then there is no reason anymore not to indict Hillary as the architect of Russiagate. We all know it's the truth. So the cheapest way out of this mess for them is to give her up and hope that is enough bread and circuses to distract from the real storm ahead of us. The Washington Free Beacon today, or actually reported this week, that the Obama administration skirted key U.S. sanctions to grant Iran access to billions in hard currency, despite public assurances that the administration was engaging in no such action. They lied. And it gets worse. The investigation published Wednesday by the House Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations further discloses secret efforts by top Obama administration officials to assure European countries that they would receive a pass from U.S. sanctions if they engaged in business with Iran. Now, when I tell you that these are top officials in the Obama administration, I mean it. This week, Obama's chief counsel in charge of economic policy in the White House, at age 58, killed himself. He was about to be asked about where the $10 trillion went. Where did it go? I don't mean the $10 trillion of the budget. We already had that in 2008. I mean the other $10 trillion that were added on top of that sent it to $20 trillion. Did you get a new airport? Did you get a new hospital? Did you get a new college, a new school, a new spaceship, a new aircraft carrier? Did you get new roads, new bridges? No. Did you get a new drug? A new computer? No. $10 trillion above and beyond the budget. We didn't fight any major wars. We didn't buy any countries. We didn't buy gold. We didn't invest in anything. Where is the $10 trillion? The man that knew hung himself, put a bullet in his head, killed himself. There's a law that applies to this situation. U.S. Code 2381 says, and I'm going to quote, "Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title but not less than $10,000 and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States." Barack Hussein Obama has planted seeds that will be bearing bitter fruit for many years, maybe decades. He is, without any doubt, the worst president in American history. Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan, yes, the dough-faced presidents made the Civil War inevitable, but worse came later. Grant, blind to corruption and out of his depth, but there have been worse than he as well. Woodrow Wilson, that black-hearted Presbyterian bigot, arguably gave the world Hitler and World War II, and so he is definitely in the Final Four. Harding, nah. His tax cuts and return to normalcy got the American economy in the 20s roaring. FDR, LBJ, they gave us the modern welfare state and dependent classes automatically voting Democrat. But the full bill on the damage they did hasn't yet been presented. Nixon, please. But there's only one thing Barack Obama has on all the competitors: treason. He showered hundreds of billions of dollars on the Islamic State. There are those who say it was their money. It belonged to the Iranian government. But it was frozen, and it wasn't paid since 1979. Indeed, there was a reason for that. And not even Jimmy Carter, who made the Islamic Republic out of Iran possible, thought that money, which had been paid by the Shah's government in a canceled arms deal, belonged to the mullahs who overthrew the Shah. Likewise, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, all thought that the Islamic Republic was not due money that was owed to the Shah. Only Barack Obama did. And the definition of treason is giving aid and comfort to the enemy. The leaders of the Islamic State and of Iran, their people to chant death to America in mosques every single Friday and repeatedly vow that they will ultimately destroy the United States of America and the state of Israel. They have members inside our own Congress right now because of actions that Barack Obama took, moving 70,000 Somalis to Minneapolis and turning it into Somalia so that they could elect a Somalian representative in Congress. All of that came from Barack Obama. Now, other presidents have been stupid, they've been incompetent, they've been dishonest, they've been corrupt, but none of them have committed treason. Only Barack Obama. So, I recommend that it happen. I'm just saying, it's the right thing to do. I want to cover one more thing about the group that met in the Capitol this week. It's kind of inspiring when you see people take off in the middle of the week to go someplace, not where they're going to be paid, not where they're going to get any fame, they're not going to get anything to eat, they're going to be outside. Pro-lifers flooded the Illinois Capitol on Wednesday in opposition to several radical pro-abortion bills that would allow unborn babies to be aborted right up to the moment of birth. The Illinois News Network reports so many people showed up for the peaceful pro-life rally that police temporarily closed access to the Capitol due to overcrowding. There's widespread outcry from the people of Illinois against these extreme anti-women and anti-children bills since they were introduced a month ago, said Mary Kate Knorr of Illinois Right to Life Action. Residents from all corners of Illinois are expressing outrage at this proposed legislation, which disregards the health and safety of women. The pro-abortion legislation would treat abortion as a fundamental right and strip away even minor protections for unborn babies and medical professionals who object to abortions. Capital News Illinois reports the Reproductive Health Act, which is House Bill 2495 in Illinois, appears likely to pass with Democrats in control of both state houses. And don't forget Michael Madigan, who pretty much controls the state. But pro-lifers have renewed hope after state residents turned out in huge numbers on Wednesday. We're very encouraged to see this turnout. This is certainly going to make an impact with the legislators, even people who say they're pro-choice, even elected officials who say they're pro-choice are reluctant to support such extreme measures as this. According to Illinois Right to Life Action, more than 10,000 people have filed witness slips against the legislation, the strongest opposition that pro-life lobbyist Ralph Rivera said he has ever seen. Several state lawmakers joined pro-lifers in the Capitol to condemn the proposed abortion expansion. She said even most pro-choice Illinoisians disagree with extreme abortion expansions. When you dig into the weeds of this bill, it is absolutely an extreme overreach, she said. It really is something to give away money and really business to the abortion industry. It's not about the mothers. It's not about the babies. It's about the money. Americans know what the truth is. There has never even been one single case where an abortion of a baby saved the life of a mother. Not one. Babies can be delivered cesarean 95% of the time without risk to the mother or the baby. A recent national poll by Marist University found that 3 in 4 Americans, by the way, that's 75%, say abortion should be limited to at most the first 3 months of pregnancy. This includes most Republicans, 92%, Independents, 78%, and Democrats, 60%. It's a no-win situation for the pro-abortion crowd. If the legislation does pass in Illinois, it would prohibit the state from interfering in any way with abortions. It would erase criminal penalties for performing abortions and allow non-doctors to do them. You really want to go with this? The legislation also would repeal the partial birth abortion ban, abortion clinic regulations, and conscience protections for medical workers. A second bill also would repeal the state parental notification law, which requires underage girls to inform at least one parent before she has an abortion. That would go away. So a 13-year-old who's pregnant could go have an abortion on her own without her parents even knowing about it. Their permission is no longer required. I appreciate you being with me tonight on X Squared Radio. This is the Year of Light. Next week will be the final day of March. We'll then be officially well into spring. It should be warming up even where you are. This is the year we're going to start cranking this light up. I need you to keep your eyes open because the dark side is cornered. And when they're cornered, they're very, very dangerous. You need to keep your eyes open. You see something that looks like a weapon, a big one. In the book, I use a nuclear bomb, and it very well could be. There's enough of them proliferated around the world that it could be. Above all, go out and look for the good in others. and help it to grow a little bit every day. And before long, we'll save the planet. We'll save the Republic. This is Brooks Agnew with X Squared Radio, America Free Radio, saying peace, Earth Explorers.